The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette. Put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
This is News Talk.
Hello there, you're welcome along. So we are in the throes of Euros fever this evening and making no apologies for it. Mark Lawrence in this hour looks ahead to Italy against Spain. At 8 o'clock we are joined by a former England manager who made Gareth Southgate his captain at Middlesbrough as well. Steve McClaren interview is coming your way, and then on the football show myself and Dan McDonald will keep you posted on events at Wembley. Plus Philip O'Connor, an Irish journalist based in Scandinavia, with the word from the Danish camp where they are quietly confident of making the Euros final. 53106 the text number. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Will O'Callaghan with us this evening on the Newsround. Hi Will.
Evening Joe, how are you getting on?
Very well. Dave McIntyre, evening.
Joe, how are you?
I am very well, Dave. I'm very well. So it's Euros all the way this evening. After 8 o'clock, like I said, Steve McClaren joins us. It's amazing with Steve McClaren, and it's so unfortunate, but that "a Wally with a brolly" headline follows him around. We'll touch on that with him later on, which greeted his 3-2 defeat, his final game as England manager against Croatia at home. And it's just one of those things. It sticks in the mind, Dave. I mean, he has a very impressive career in many ways, and something like that can just be captured in a moment, and very hard to for anyone to forget it for whatever reason.
Yeah, unfortunately for him, yeah, we do remember for those sort of nights, and not maybe the new camp where he was Alex Ferguson's number 2 as United won the treble. But it's not just the Euro 2008, the one they didn't qualify for, that he's remembered for, Joey. Remember Euro 2016 as well, and his presence in the Sky Sports News studio as Iceland got those goals against England, and he was, unfortunately for him, he was probably made to look a little like a Wally on that occasion as well. I think it's unfair, but that was a good England team that they were up against Croatia in 2007, and they had it in their hands that night in the rain with Peter Crouch's goal, I remember specifically, and David Beckham, who had been written off as an international, playing a key role in the second half. And then did Croatia score 3 that night?
Yeah.
Slaven Bilic on the sideline. It was some evening.
Yeah, there was a 22-year-old kid called Modric in the middle of the field, and a 19-year-old called Rakitic came off the bench. I don't know what happened to them, but they did well that evening. Yeah, so it was Scott Carson made a dreadful mistake to get things off to a shaky start, but I guess the damage had been done earlier on. So that was Steve McClaren's 16 months in charge, 18 matches. We'll chat to him about it after 8 o'clock, as well as about Gareth Southgate, who was his first signing at Middlesbrough. He did very well, McClaren, at Middlesbrough. He went there after working under Alex Ferguson, had 5 years there, won a League Cup and brought Middlesbrough to a UEFA Cup final. So had a good 5 years there, and Southgate was his first signing, made him captain. So perfect guest to chat to on the eve of England against Denmark. To matters at hand, Will, we should get into the news round. I'm sure people are interested to get the teams ahead of the game this evening. The news round is brought to you by Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors. So what have we got?
Well, no great surprise, Joe, that both teams have stuck largely with the teams that they've used during the tournament so far. Italy forced into a change, though, defensively with Spinazzola's injury from the game against Belgium last time out in the quarter-final. It means that Di Lorenzo will play at right-back tonight. In goal, you've got Donnarumma, then you've got Di Lorenzo, Bonucci and Cellini, the 2 veteran defenders in the centre of defence, and Emerson will play at left-back. Barella, Jorginho and Verratti continue in midfield. Chiesa is going to support on the right-hand side of the attack. Ciro Immobile recovered from going down injured while one of the goals was being scored on Friday, and also Insigne playing up front for them. Spain have opted to go with no conventional number 9 since Morata has fallen out of favour. So Ferran Torres will play on the right side of their attack. Olazábal will play through the middle, and Dani Olmo has been brought into the side on the left-hand side after being pretty impressive in extra time against Switzerland last time out. In midfield, they've stuck with the tried and tested from the last 2 games, Pedri, Busquets and Koke. It is Laporte and Eric Garcia, the former Man City pairing, who are together in the centre of defence. Azpilicueta at right back, Jordi Alba at left back, and Unai Simon will be in goal. So Spain are playing this time round with a 4-3-3, Joe.
What are we thinking, Dave?
I would be leaning towards Italy. Up until the Belgium game, anytime I'd spoken to someone about the Italians, I kept saying that they hadn't played anyone. As impressive as they had been, I had real doubts about those 2 ageing central defenders and their lack of a world-class 9, certainly in the international stakes anyway. Ciro Immobile seems to be able to light it up in Serie A and Champions League football, and despite getting a goal in each of his first 2 games in this tournament, unfortunately the tournament has just got worse for him as it's gone on, and he was awful against Belgium. I thought he would have been lucky to keep his place. They just don't really have many alternatives in terms of centre forwards in that Italian squad, but they were really impressive against the Belgians. I think the loss of Spinazzola at right back is huge, and that could be an issue. Although Spain down the flanks aren't exactly young guns either, with Jordi Alba and Azpilicueta, maybe not a great attacking force. So it's overall, I think it's a 50-50 matchup, but I would favour the Italians because of how well they played against the Belgians, and I think Donnarumma in goal for me has been the goalkeeper of the tournament so far.
Yeah, very good. The loss of Spinazzola is huge, isn't it? Emerson has failed to impress, I think it's safe to say, in his time with Chelsea. Spinazzola was the left back of the tournament. You would have to probably agree. I think most people would. He was phenomenal, so that's a huge loss for them. And Will, you mentioned the front 3 there, so Oladibal in. Morata dropped. He doesn't have an injury, we're hearing?
Yeah, no, he's not starting. So at this stage, Spain tried to play 2 number 9s effectively at the start of the tournament, Joe, when they had Gerard Moreno on the back of his impressive season with Villarreal. And they stuck with Morata right through until the round of 16. And since then, they've been messing around up front. They tried to play Ferran Torres as a false 9. Like, maybe Torres will play more centrally and Oladibal will play over on the left-hand side, and maybe Dani Olmo will be there. It's a front 3 that can switch around, but it's a huge change from the way that Luis Enrique had set up early in the tournament, which was effectively to have 1 number 9 in Morata, let Gerard Moreno kind of work the channels a little bit, and then it would be all the attacking midfielders who would get up and support. He's now gone for a much more fluid system, but you would imagine with the way that team is laid out, they'll be looking to try and keep the ball away from Italy. Didn't work 5 years ago. Italy beat them 4-0 in the round of 16. Similar looking Spain team really to that year in the way that it's actually composed with a lot of the older players still around. You could argue probably weaker in the centre of the defence now that it's not Ramos and Piqué, and now it's Garcia and Laporte. But a lot of the people who played in that game 5 years ago, like Azpilicueta, Jordi Alba, Busquets, are still around. And you'd worry a bit if Verratti plays the way he did last Friday and he can get up and pressure Busquets. Spain are going to have a very difficult night.
Like Koke, Busquets, Pedri is tidy David midfield, but Ferran Torres, I haven't seen him a huge amount, I have to be honest, of Orazabal and Daniel Olmo don't quite inspire. Spain do look a touch lightweight up front, not least in comparison with where Italy are.
Yeah, well, they don't have an out-and-out striker, as Will was saying. Dani Olmo's a really top-class player, and he's a player who's had to work so hard to get to where he is. And he left Barcelona for Dinamo Zagreb, which was a very odd move for a young Spaniard who's come through the La Masia Academy in Barca and just went over there, cut his teeth. He knew he was good enough to play at the highest level. He was waiting for a top club to come and get him. RB Leipzig eventually did. He was very impressive with them last season. So I think he has an awful lot to bring to them. Will said, the Spaniards will be hoping to keep the ball away from Italy. And it's those 3-on-3 in the middle of the field that's going to be, for me, the decisive factor as to where this game is going to go, because Jorginho, Verratti and Barella have been absolutely brilliant for the Italians. And while Pedri is so young but potentially a superstar in years to come, Busquets with his experience, and Koke is a player I've always liked, although I haven't seen him at the player he once was since Gabi left Atletico Madrid. The two of them as a pair were absolutely phenomenal under Simeone for so long. So I think the Italians will actually see more of the ball, which will be very interesting to see how a Spanish side in and around breaking even in the possession stakes copes, because they've just passed the ball to death for many of their games. Look, they still managed to rack up the goals in a couple of their matches, and then in other matches they look like they could be out there for 2 or 3 days and not score. So it's very hard to figure out the Spanish side at the moment.
Yeah. Luis Enrique has talked about this game as a battle for possession. He's really talking up that battle in advance, said that's their main objective, is to get the ball and keep it off Italy. So thus far, if you're interested in the stats, Spain have had the most possession of any side in the tournament, 67% on average across the 5 matches. Italy second with 56%, and then Denmark are third with 54%, and England with 53%. It's kind of curious. The 4 semi-finalists are the top 4 in the billing there. So Spain top with possession by some distance. 67% is way out. Like Italy 56%, Denmark 54%, England 53%. They're all very bunched. Spain are way ahead of the pack, 67%. And I suppose if it boils down to attempts on target, kind of interesting as well. Italy, most attempts on goal, 101. Spain have had 95 attempts on goal, so they are creating chances. Obviously, they lack a finisher. But it's Italy 101, Spain 95, Denmark 90, and then a huge drop, England 37. I think that's kind of, you would believe those stats actually. They're stats which are kind of borne out by your eyes, I think, when it comes to England in particular. But like Italy, 101 attempts on goal to England's 37. But Spain and Italy really well matched thus far, if you're going by the stats anyway. It's going to be interesting. We've got Mark Lawrenson on the way, 7:30. We'll get his thoughts. Like I said, Steve McClaren on the way after 8. Dave, who's your winner overall of the tournament?
I would say Italy at the moment. But ask me again in about 3 hours' time, and that answer may be a ridiculous one.
Yeah. We'll talk to Mark Lawrenson, like I said, 7:30. So that's the main event this evening. Will, we should jump in with the latest from South Africa, because this tour now is hanging on by a thread, I would put it to you.
Yeah, I think it's in real danger, lads. The Lions warm-up game against the Bulls officially postponed about an hour ago. It's after 4 Bulls players and 1 member of the management team tested positive for COVID-19. Organisers did say that they're open to the Lions facing another team on Saturday, while South Africa's game against Georgia on Friday is currently under review. 11 new cases have been confirmed this evening in the Springboks camp, including their head coach Jack Nienaber. The latest round of testing has also returned 4 positive tests tonight in the Georgian squad. And the Lions defence coach Steve Tandy was speaking earlier. It was put to him, hypothetically, if Georgia were free to play this weekend, would they play them?
There'll be other people will be talking and dealing with that, and generally it's just trying to focus on day to day and getting the players and making sure our standards and what we can control, and if we end up in Cape Town, we'll deal with that. If we've got to come back to Johannesburg, we're fully prepared for whatever happens. I think when you're talking hypotheticals, I think anything's possible through COVID. I think we've seen that. So for me, I think anything, if there's any opportunity for games called off to play a game, then that'll be great for us and for whoever else is looking for a game.
I suspect he may have been asked that before news came through of the 4 positive cases in the Georgian squad. Yep. You would think that makes things very difficult on the Georgian front. 11 cases in the Springboks camp, Dave, after 4 cases the week before. I mean, it's running rife, I think, is the truth there, is the reality. And there'll be pressure put on, I'm sure, to get the stamp of approval from the medics. I'm sure the government will make sure that pressure is put on. But I mean, I don't know, like at best now it feels like you're heading towards, well, let's just get down to Cape Town and have the 3 tests on July 24th and cancel everything else maybe. Yeah,
well, I think if you were to be told now they could get the 3 test matches played without a hitch, they probably would take that. But every time you listen to a news bulletin, the news seems to get worse. It sounds a bit farcical at this point that, you could be potentially scrabbling around in the dirt looking for challengers at the weekend. It's almost like a Division 7 or 8 Dublin adult league sort of game where the one opponent can't play at the weekend, so you make a couple of phone calls and see who might be around for a challenge match. And I'm thinking of Alan Wynne-Jones and how devastated he must have been that night, and I'm sure he would love to be over there with them. But there must be a tiny part in the nether regions of his mind that is thinking, I'm better off not being over there, because it must be so difficult for everybody involved, from the organisers to the players to all of the staff they have with them. Obviously the Lions bubble has remained intact, but you wonder, is it inevitable that a case or 2 creeps into theirs? Because as you say, it appears to be rife. That we've 3 different sides now, the Bulls, the Springboks and the Georgians, all now reporting positive cases, and it just seems to be going from bad to worse, and you really could not predict where this is going to end up.
Yeah, I've no idea if the Bulls are all in a biosecure bubble or if they're going home to their families or not, so maybe that explains the Bulls cases. You would think the Georgian squad are in a pretty secure bubble, so they've had 4 positives. The Springboks camp certainly was, and I would think still is. I don't know, are they going home at any stage? But they were in a 3-week bubble before the first raft of 4 cases, and now so 11 cases is a big jump. I don't know, Will, what's your read on the situation? Lions have done remarkably well to not have a single case yet.
Yeah, it's surprising they've got to here, because all the kind of commentary in South Africa earlier today about the cases that they previously had and suspicion that more were going to come back in after the latest round of testing is that the players and coaching staff with South Africa were vaccinated. So the hope was that once they'd been vaccinated and had stayed in a bubble which was very different to previous tours, that this would mean that COVID-19 impact was going to be minimal. You have to be massively concerned when you hear 11 cases. If these players now have to isolate for up to 10 days, it brings you up very close to the first test. and trying to scratch together a team to actually play. As Dave said, it almost feels like, getting ready to get a junior team just to field against you so the Lions can get some game time this weekend. It detracts massively from the idea of the Lions actually playing against a touring party, because the Bulls this weekend was seen as probably the only South African franchise that were likely to give the Lions a decent game. Like last week, the Lions eased home, but the Bulls are seen as the strongest based on the way they played in the Rainbow Cup. Now that's been removed away, and you just start to wonder at this stage, how are the Lions going to fit those 10 or 11 days in before they're due to go into the final stages of preparation for the first test, if, say, another game was to fall. Thankfully, from off the ball's point of view, and we still have a bit of skin in the game here, we've got the match tomorrow night between the Sharks and the Lions, which will go ahead. But everything just massive uncertainty now, particularly with what's happening on Friday, because it seemed really neat that if Georgia couldn't play against South Africa because of South Africa's cases, Georgia just slip in, play the game in Joburg on Saturday against the Lions, and everyone moves on. But now it seems very unlikely that Georgia will be able to field if they've got a minimum of 4 cases to deal with between now and Saturday. I would be shocked if Friday's game between the Boks and Georgia goes ahead.
Yeah, I would think so. 4 cases Georgia camp, 11 cases Springboks, and it's Tuesday. I mean, if they manage to pull that off by Friday, then I'd almost be suspicious, really, of what's been done or what pressure has been applied. Look, I guess a final word on it, because it's an ever-changing situation. But I guess, Dave, say all the warm-up games go, say the South African-Georgia game goes, but say they manage to get the 3 tests played. Ultimately, these warm-up games are forgotten very quickly, and increasingly so. They're less and less competitive with each passing tour, I think. If they get the 3 tests played and the 3 tests are as good as we all expect them to be, then the tour will be considered a bit of a success. So it's fairly grim right now, but there is still the distinct possibility of, look, can we get the South African team into a properly biosecure bubble, get the Lions, they've seemed to be doing well so far, into an equally biosecure bubble, get these 3 tests played, and we sort of get out of here without almost embarrassment caused all round.
It'll always be remembered, though, Joe, won't it, as the tour of South Africa that never really was.
Sure.
Unfortunately, no matter what way you try and dress it up, there is still the potential for 3 memorable tests, albeit in front of empty stands, which is not a Lions tour that any of us can relate to. So either way, it'll always be the COVID Lions tour, and that's unfortunate for everybody involved. It was always going to be a huge risk once they ultimately made that decision to stage the tour in South Africa as originally planned. This was always a possibility, and we are there now. Unfortunately, it's starting to unravel, but they'll see it as a success now to get the 3 tests played. Whoever comes out on the losing side will always be able to point to some reasons as to why things were really beyond their control. And in several years' time, I don't think we're going to be watching the video and the documentary that's been made about the 2021 Lions tour with the fondness, if there is one at all, that we've watched the ones previously.
No. Yet another scene from the hotel room, I think, would be the documentary. So, more rugby, Will, for us?
Yeah, the Ireland attack coach Mike Catt speaking ahead of the game against the USA at the weekend. He said he was pleased by Joey Carbery's contribution in last weekend's win against Japan. The Munster fly half was playing his first international game since the World Cup back in 2019. Catt feels there's still more to come from Carbery once he's fully match sharp.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first time I've worked with Joey. Obviously, for 18 months he's been sitting there twiddling his thumbs and not getting an opportunity. So, he's eased his way back in there. Like a few players that haven't played internationally for a while, it does take a little bit of time. But again, it's him fitting in. I thought him and Jefferson Park, performed well. I think they controlled the game quite nicely. And again, it's just the start of Joey's recovery, really, in terms of where he's at. We know what he's capable of doing, and it's just how quickly we can get him up to that speed for him to really go and impress.
Meanwhile, Will, the Munster takeover continues?
Yeah, Ron O'Gara has got one of his ex-teammates for company in the La Rochelle coaching team for next season. Donncha Ryan is going to be the La Rochelle forwards coach with a special focus on lineouts for the coming season. The former Ireland lock called time on his 17-season playing career this summer. He finished up with Racing 92. It was their president, Jackie Laurinazzetti, who confirmed the news today that the Tipperary native has now accepted an offer to join the new-look La Rochelle coaching team, and he'll be filling some of the gap that was left by John O'Gibbs.
Yeah, good move for him. Good appointment, you would think. Lads, you're forgetting the interview with the Dutch TV channel where McClaren, after getting the job, put on a fake Dutch accent while speaking English, thinking he would be better understood. He doesn't help himself, to be fair, says Eamon Kildare. No, I haven't forgotten it. I'm not sure I'll bring it up with him, but we've all done that a bit. Come on holidays, Dave McIntyre, asking for directions. You telling me you haven't done that? You haven't just started barking English words loudly?
I suppose maybe in France I've probably started to speak English with a French accent.
Yeah.
In a bit to try, as Steve McClaren was doing, trying to make himself a little more understandable. I don't know. I can't categorically say I haven't done that, but albeit his time in the Netherlands was hugely successful.
Yeah.
And he had a decent time in Germany as well with Wolfsburg. You could never accuse him of being a man that was unwilling to broaden his horizons or take a chance. Like, he's always gone where his heart has taken and where he felt he could make a difference. There will always be detractors. And I think hopefully when you can put it to him, in the words of our listener there, he hasn't helped himself at times over the years, but he still eked out a really impressive career for himself.
Yeah. He's technical director now at Derby, helping out Wayne Rooney at the moment, is what Steve's up to. From Liam, how in God's name have they not vaccinated everyone involved with the South African team? They have.
They did.
They have, yeah. Yeah, you can still get cases. I mean, thankfully, I would presume if they've been vaccinated, they're not especially sick, but you can still be positive for COVID. Peter, I bet the Lions training sessions are more intense than these warm-up games anyway. Maybe the players could do with a rest without those warm-up matches. Yeah, sure. I'd take the point from a preparation point of view, but from the point of view of a tour, it's not great, is it? Will, where are we going next?
We'll stick with the football because UEFA have invited Christian Eriksen to attend Sunday's Euro 2020 final. The Denmark midfielder, you remember, suffered a cardiac arrest in their opening game of the tournament against Finland. Eriksen is currently recovering at home after being released from hospital a couple of weeks ago. Leeds have improved their defensive options ahead of the coming season. They've completed the signing of Spanish defender Junior Firpo from Barcelona. The 24-year-old will cost Marcelo Bielsa's side €15 million. He's agreed a 4-year contract at Elland Road. Perhaps crucially for Barcelona, they still need to shift around 198 million off their wage bill at the moment, Joe, if they're going to be allowed to register their 4 signings from this summer and potentially the new contract of Lionel Messi ahead of the new season. And they have to meet that deadline, I think, by 2 weeks' time. So there might well be a fire sale to be had for some Premier League clubs.
This is one of those things where I feel, you know, like these stories before the Olympic Games, oh, the facilities aren't going to be ready in time. And then, of course, they're always ready in time. I feel with the Barcelona situation, is this one of those situations where it's, oh, they're going to have to hit a certain deadline and have a certain amount of debt cleared? I sort of feel like they'll sort it out. There'll be some creative accounting of some kind.
Well, they met a bit of a roadblock last week because Juan Laporta went to meet Javier Tebas, the head of the Spanish FA, and asked for effectively a bit of an easing in terms of the rigidness of the new rules about expenditure on wages. And he said, look, you know, we've had a COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, our income has pretty much hit zero. So therefore, could we not just push this back by a few months and revenue be back up once supporters are back in the stadium in the autumn? And he was told strictly no. If every other team has to meet this, you're going to have to do so as well. I think last season they went 115% of their wages over their income. So they're probably going to have to give away some players, maybe like Miralem Pjanic. They might well have to give away Philippe Coutinho and still pay Liverpool for his transfer while he's playing for someone else. So they're in a right old mess at this stage. It seems the deal has been agreed with Leo Messi, but even with a slight reduction in wages, they need to get more off their wage bill to actually be able to register him as a player for next season.
We were talking, by the way, if you missed it, to Marcelo Mora Irahu last night. So Lionel Messi's doing his level best to win a Copa America. Argentina playing the semi-finals this evening. He scored a goal and had 2 assists in the quarterfinals, so he's in very decent form. I presume even you, Dave McIntyre, are not finding time to watch the Copa America along with the Euros. Not
live, anyway. No, I've seen the highlights, and it would be the icing on the cake for him, wouldn't it? I'm not sure it'll rival, you know, Mexico '86 or anything, but it's always the one thing that's been thrown at him whenever the comparisons with Maradona have been made is that he's never managed to do it with Argentina. He's never managed to win a big trophy with Argentina. There are really only 2 trophies they can win, either the World Cup or the Copa America, and they've come close under Messi in the past. I mean, how much of a difference would it make in terms of how he's perceived in the minds of maybe non-Barcelona fans if he was to win a Copa America with Argentina? Does it edge him ahead of Maradona then? Not in my mind. I'm still a Maradona favourite, but it might change it for others. Yeah, Brazil won their semi-final last night, so it would be an Argentinian-Brazilian final, which would be quite something. That game's on this evening, about 2 a.m. if you're at home and looking for football around then. So where are we going next, Will?
We've got the semi-final lineup complete at Wimbledon. Really and truly, all the players won very comfortably today. World number one Ash Barty will take on the 2018 champion Angelique Kerber on Thursday. They both won in straight sets in the late games this evening. We also had a victory in straight sets for the former US Open finalist Karolina Pliskova, and she will be back out in action on Thursday as well after a straight sets win against Victoria Golubic. So none of the four really that tested, but Ash Barty, the world number one, into the semi-finals for the first time at Wimbledon. We won't have a new men's world number one at the end of the week because Daniil Medvedev, the world number two, crashed out in the round of 16. Bit of a surprise today. The Russian lost by 3-2 against Hubie Hurkacz in their delayed clash, and Hurkacz will now play his hero Roger Federer in the quarterfinals tomorrow afternoon.
Okay. Enda McGinley was on OTB AM this morning.
He was, and he was speaking out for the so-called weaker counties. He says he's unhappy with the structure of the Senior Football Championship. The current Antrim manager saw his players exit the championship against Armagh on Sunday just gone. Speaking on OTB AM, McGinley expressed his belief that weaker counties aren't being properly catered for by the GAA.
We're very much putting our eggs in the elite team basket at the minute. Like, their plans for the Tailteann Cup and some of those proposals were insulting. They held nothing of appeal to players, bar some crumbs of being seen by the authorities of giving some extra games to those teams. In no way was the profile of the finals being catered for. In no way was things like prize money, which should be equal between competitions, being catered for. Like, just across the board, it was second class. For a smaller county team to win, say, a Tailteann Cup takes every bit the same effort from those players as for Dublin and Kerry to win the All-Ireland.
It's going to be tricky to ever sort this out, Dave, isn't it? Because the second tier tournaments, I mean, if you look at any other sport, are going to feel a bit second tier by definition, and there's probably just no avoiding that. And you know, the matches we talk about here generally revolve around the bigger teams. The TV audience revolve around the bigger teams. There's always going to be, unfortunately, if it's second tier, it feels second tier. I do take Enda McGinley's point that the crumbs have to be a bit more significant, be it prize money or the profile of certain games. You know, it can't just rest on that. But I don't know, this whole situation is very difficult. There's still a bunch of the weaker counties who say, oh no, we leave us in the main championship, we'd rather our day out, we'd rather have a crack at the big boys. I think increasingly most are in agreement that tiered championship is the only way to have something that feels a bit vibrant and a bit alive each weekend, because at the moment we're just not getting that.
Well, no, we're not. I mean, it's been a really disappointing championship, certainly in the football so far. There is no silver bullet to this problem. If there was, we would have come up with it many moons ago. We've been talking about this for so long now. There are ways to at least dress it up a little, and you know, some of the things were mentioned by Enda McGinley there. You give it a proper date in the calendar, you give the team that wins it a proper team holiday, one that would resemble what the winners of the top tier championship would get. You make sure that the TV times and the audience times are amenable as well to players, but it's very difficult not to see a situation whereby teams who are in Division 3 and 4 who don't make their own provincial final and thereby drop into the Tailteann Cup don't wave goodbye to a lot of their players. It'll be interesting to see how many just start stepping away, as was the case even with the qualifiers when some counties were knocked out of the provincial championships. You would immediately hear of players that had decided to head away to America for the summer. Now, I know the rules preclude them from actually playing football over there if they have played a championship match in the summer here, but it'll take a couple of years to bed down. But he is right in some senses. There needs to be more than just lip service paid to this competition.
Fellas, we are out of time. Will, thanks a mil.
Cheers, lads.
Dave McIntyre, pleasure.
Thanks, boys.
Just before we get into Mark Lawrenson, a competition for you. OTB Sports have teamed up with Guinness to welcome what will hopefully be a summer of more rugby moments spent with good friends as Ireland face USA in the second of the 2 home summer test matches this Saturday. We're giving you the chance to win a pair of tickets with thanks to Guinness for the match to be in the chance of winning. Tell us who kicked the winning drop goal for Ireland in the 2009 Grand Slam win over Wales. Who kicked the winning drop goal? Name and answer please to 53106. It costed 30 cents. Winner to be announced at the end of the show. All in association with Guinness. Hashtag Guinness Time. Drink responsibly. Visit drinkaware.ie. We've Steve McClaren on the way after 8 o'clock. Busy football show, and up next, Mark Lawrenson looks ahead to Italy, Spain.